Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a source today that completely strips away the usual excuses. The ones about bad luck or tough circumstances. Instead, it points a finger directly at, well, our daily routines. It breaks down the specific day-to-day behaviors that literally trap people in financial stagnation. We so often think of wealth or poverty as just a product of our environment, right? But this analysis, it asks us to look closely at our own choices. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the source material doesn't pull any punches right out of the gate. Quote, most people stay poor their entire life because of these 5 habits. Wow. It frames poverty not just as a lack of money in the bank, but as a direct symptom of consistent negative behavioral patterns. The weight of that statement definitely sets a serious, deliberate tone for us today. It tells us that what we're about to examine isn't just a list of minor slip-ups. No, these are the foundational building blocks of a life of financial struggle.
And the source follows up that brutal reality with a really stark warning. If you do even one of these, stop today. I kind of want to extend that same challenge to you right now. As we unpack these habits together, I want you to reflect deeply on your own daily routines. Look, it's super easy to listen to an explainer and think about how these behaviors apply to other people, right? Oh, my neighbor does that. But the true value of our analysis today comes from holding up a mirror to ourselves. The urgency here is absolute. The text demands immediate action. Stop today, not tomorrow, not next week.
First, let's frame the overarching narrative. We're looking at Section 1, the poverty trap, and confronting reality.
Our source divides these habits into categories. Section 2 covers misplaced priorities and external delusions, basically focusing outward rather than building inward.
Which brings us to habit number 1. Honestly, this is perhaps the most visible and common trap of the whole bunch. Spending money to impress others. Just think about buying a car you can barely afford just for the driveway appeal, or swiping a credit card for a flashy designer watch while you're secretly struggling to pay rent. You're taking your finite resources, your money, which literally represents your hard-earned time and effort, and you're actively draining it. And for what? Not for an asset, not for financial security, but for an illusion. You're buying the fleeting external validation of people who, let's be honest, probably aren't deeply invested in your actual well-being anyway. It's a massive drain on your resources just for the sake of appearances. It basically ensures that while you might look rich to the outside world, you're actively keeping yourself poor behind the scenes.
So that moves us deliberately to the second habit in our external delusions category. And this one shifts the focus from how we spend our money to how we spend our time.
And this brilliantly illustrates the source's point. It contrasts hours of passive entertainment with spending absolutely zero time learning new skills. Look at it this way. Entertainment is passive. It asks absolutely nothing of you and gives you momentary comfort. Learning new skills, on the other hand, is active. It demands effort, sure, but it builds real future value. If your scale is tipped entirely toward hours of scrolling or binge watching and zero creation or learning, well, you're essentially guaranteeing that your future self will be no more capable or valuable than your present self.
Now we shift gears a bit to Section 3, the inaction trap and internal sabotage. These next habits are really about the active refusal to do the right things. Habit number 3. This is the classic habit of the perfectionist. But as we'll see, perfectionism is often just procrastination wearing a really nice, tailored suit.
Waiting for the perfect moment? Guys, it's a total trap. The perfect moment usually just implies you're waiting for a miracle to come along and do the heavy lifting for you. It's this mythical condition that your brain creates to justify staying comfortable and avoiding any real risk. By waiting for the stars to perfectly align, or for the economy to be absolutely ideal, or for you to feel 100% ready, you're actively choosing to do nothing. And in the context of our source text, doing nothing is a guaranteed foolproof way to stay exactly where you are.
So the crucial point is the counter-argument the source offers here. Successful people start before they're ready. Notice the stark contrast there. The poor habit is waiting for perfection. The wealthy habit is embracing imperfection and taking action anyway. Starting before you're ready means accepting that, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but it's recognizing that the momentum of action is infinitely more valuable than the safety of just waiting around. It's like jumping out of the plane and figuring out how to build the parachute on the way down.
As we transition to the 4th habit, we encounter another sneaky form of internal sabotage. This one is less about timing and entirely about accountability.
The source argues that blaming everyone else for your problems is a definitive poverty habit. Why? Well, because when you blame the economy or your boss, your upbringing, or just plain bad luck, you are surrendering your power. You're basically saying, I am not in control of my life. The absolute opposite of that is taking responsibility. Even if a bad situation isn't entirely your fault, taking responsibility for your reaction to it is literally the only way you can actively change your life. Blame keeps you a victim, right? Responsibility makes you an active participant in your own success.
Finally, we reach Section 4, the final hurdle, and the breaking point that can completely undo all of your hard work.
Let's look at habit number 5. I actually want to pause on this for a second, just to let the weight of this final point sink in, because this is the quietest yet easily the most devastating habit of them all. Giving up too soon. Just let those words sit with you for a moment. Think about times in your own life where you might have abandoned a project, or a fitness goal, or a side hustle right when it started getting really difficult. This habit isn't about never trying in the first place. It's about failing to endure. It's about letting the friction of the process convince you that the goal is unattainable. Now, what's really interesting about this point is the tragic timing outlined by the source material. It notes that most people quit when success is just around the corner. This is the heartbreaking reality of this habit. It implies that the effort has already been expended. The incredibly difficult work has actually been done. But because the results are immediately visible, people walk away mere inches from the finish line. They endure all the pain of the journey, but deny themselves the reward of the destination, simply because they lost patience at the 11th hour.
So, let's look at the resolution. Section 5, choose your habits. The source really boils this down to a simple binary trajectory.
It's a straightforward equation of cause and effect. Poor habits build a poor life. Your life is the sum total of your daily repetitions. But notice the active phrasing for the alternative here. Rich people build habits. They consciously construct the routines that will inevitably lead to success. Meanwhile, those trapped in poverty allow negative habits to build their lives for them, basically by default. It's a complete inversion of control. Which brings us to a super provocative question directly from our source material. Which habit will you quit today? Because, as the text reminds us, you are either the architect of your habits or you're the victim of them. If you don't intentionally choose the former today, the latter will absolutely be chosen for you tomorrow. Drop a comment below and let me know what you're cutting out. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.